I was asked by the Trinity House to go and collect this ship from Spain in 1974, bring it back home. Well, it was only 7 knots, you know, and I just had this Spanish crew who seemed to live off bacon sandwiches and brandy, as far as I could see. Which is a nice old timer, you know. I'm glad somebody's doing something about it, really.
SS Robin is the oldest steamship in the world. She was built in 1890 at the Thames Ironworks in Bow, in the East End of London. She's listed in the National Historic Fleet's Core Collection, the nautical equivalent of a Grade 1 building, alongside Cutty Sark and HMS Belfast. Robin spent her working life as a coal carrier and ended her days laid up in a Spanish port, where she awaited an uncertain fate until the intervention of the British Maritime Trust. Robin was later moved to West India Quay in London's Docklands and mothballed. In 2000, David Kampfner and his wife Nishani came across her in their search for a venue to develop a centre for teaching young people digital arts. The Kampfners immediately fell in love with Robin and bought her from the Maritime Trust for £1 and the promise to give her a new lease of life.
I think the thing that was most captivating about Robin, in all honesty, was the first time we went on board. There was no real access to the ship and she had been mothballed. So we were climbing around with torches and there were all these unusual spaces. It actually felt like being on, I don't know, a ghost ship of some description where everything was very dark and damp. But there was just something in the environment, that kind of atmosphere, that was just really attractive.
With like-minded enthusiasts, they began transforming Robin as best they could with the limited resources at their disposal. In time, a charitable trust was set up with the Duke of Edinburgh as an honorary member.
Well, the end result is a space that's been used very effectively by schools and by the public to come down and look around at the exhibitions that we've run over 3 years. So unfortunately, we've had to take a step backwards now and strip her out again in order to start treating the underside. The capital work that's required on a vessel of this age and of this importance is fairly substantial, and there aren't a great many funders in the mix that would be prepared to invest in heritage infrastructure, and Heritage Lottery Fund are the lead funder in that area. So we went to them with a £3 million bid. Roughly 2.1 of that was intended to be the restoration of the vessel itself, and the balance was to fund the project over the foreseeable future and run the education program. Well, it was declined for 2 specific technical reasons. We were given the thumbs up from Heritage Lottery in terms of the value of the ship, obviously, that's beyond dispute. The importance of it historically, the work that we've done in education and conservation and community. But the specific issues are we're just basically a very small organisation. We don't have the management structure to really deliver that sort of bid.
The Lottery Fund setback compounded the mounting problems facing the enthusiasts trying to save Robin from the breaker's yard. The most serious threat came from Crossrail, which proposed to build a high-speed rail link across London from east to west, including a new station where the Robin was moored. An approach to Crossrail for financial help failed to gain support. Time was fast running out. Within days, Crossrail was to appear before a parliamentary select committee to seek legislation to start work on the Mammoth project. The Kampfners had one last chance, but they needed a professional advocate to present their case to the select committee. In desperation, they phoned the Bar Pro Bono helpline. The chairman of the Pro Bono unit was Robin Knowles, the son of Captain Norman Knowles, who 30 years earlier had sailed Robin back to the Thames.
The next day they were due to be before a House of Lords Select Committee, which was really the final place for an appeal for funds, the aim being that Crossrail provide funds if the Robin was to move out of the path of Crossrail. In the event, I looked at the problem. I agreed to meet with David and Nish and others, and as a matter of law it didn't look very hopeful to me, but I could see that if we could find some space to put things in a more considered way, both to the Select Committee and possibly across the negotiation table with Crossrail, we might make some progress. Not because of the law, but because this is such a special ship, and the case was the case in all other respects seemed very compelling.
Well, the future immediately now is that we have managed to get agreement from an alternative funder, Crossrail, who will be helping us to take the ship into dry dock and start to do this capital work. The Isle of Dogs station, as it's to be called, will sit in this dock. They actually need to drain this dock, build a station and submerge it, and then refloat, or rather refill the dock with water afterwards. Well, the effect that has is that we end up in a basin. In order for them to do their work, they need to cut us off from the rest of the world effectively, or certainly from the rest of the floating world. So we will sit in a basin from the end of this year. And that'll be until the duration of the project, until the end of it. So we need to make sure that the capital work that has to be done on the ship is done before they landlock us. The consequence is very probably pretty serious. The consequence is that this ship is just too fragile to be left for that period of time, for the 5 to 8 years of the construction of the Crossrail build. So the possibility is that she will sink.
Stripped of her funnel, mast and heavy rigging, Robin is made ready to move. The first phase, to manoeuvre her across West India Quay so she can be towed under a narrow section of the DLR viaduct, then on through the Canary Wharf locks to a temporary mooring at South Quay.
Well, today is like the start of the refit programme, in the sense that we're moving to a shipyard, and the first stage of the tow is what's happening today. So basically getting us from the home berth of West India Quay to South Quay, which takes us through all the bridges and waterways, and hopefully removes any obstacles. We'll then have a bit of time to prepare the ship for actually going to sea, and then we'll be ready to move. We started this in 2002 and we're now 2008, so it's been a long process to get us here, and there have been several times along the way where it looked like the ship was going to be scrapped, so it's been quite a highly pressured environment to kind of work in, but a huge relief to be able to be on the move now and get her to the shipyard where she needs to be.
Load this now and go around for the next one.
The big day has arrived. SS Robin is to be moved from South Quay out into the Thames to begin her journey to Lowestoft. There she will undergo extensive tests before work can start on renovating her. She is accompanied on the journey as far as Gravesend by a launch full of the press, trust members and volunteers.
We have a great romance about sail. And although she was originally launched in sail, she wouldn't have used sail beyond about the first 5 years of her life. We also don't really respect our working class heritage. I think we understand our Royal Naval history, our wars and our military past. We understand also the more glamorous ships, certainly the ships like Discovery that would have had a famous captain or a skipper. But this ship was a hard-working industrial vessel that got on with its job and didn't have any celebrities attached to it. And probably because we're in an age of celebrity adoration, we probably don't figure in the same league as those that have either glamorous names attached or glamorous histories attached. I think Robin will certainly grow to become known, and you know, the public will hopefully warm to her history, but she'll never be a glamorous ship. I mean, she was a coal carrier and did a hard day's work. And I think there is an element of respect in that, which we obviously want to tell the story of, but also, of course, you know, which touched a lot of people's lives. I mean, this ship was the story of Britain's wealth. It's the story of building the Industrial Revolution. It was a quiet, hard-working vessel that actually was the origins of banking, the origins of trade. I mean, this is a trader. And 3 centuries on, the very people that work in the buildings next to us still call themselves traders.
Detailed examination of Robin reveals she would not survive being back in the water for long, and is considered no longer seaworthy. The Kampfners come up with a groundbreaking solution. They propose to lift Robin onto a floating pontoon specially constructed in Poland. It's the first time in maritime conservation that such an approach is to be attempted.
We went up to Lowestoft having had an in-water survey done with an idea of restoration. So we were going to look at 40% of steelwork to the hull of Robin. When we took her out of the water and on the slipway and had a full survey done, the first out-of-water survey for many years, it became apparent that we were actually looking at possibly 80% replacement. So then you have very difficult decisions about how much new you put into a historic ship and whether she then retains her historical value. One of the really great things about Robin is she is still largely original. She was in her working life until the 70s, but she hasn't really been messed about with in the way that other historic ships have. And so there was really quite a conscious decision to look at that closely. The second issue was that obviously she's a riveted steel hull. Re-riveting a ship now is incredibly difficult, not least because of health and safety issues, but also finding the skill, the workmanship, and also being able to cost it. The envelope of funding we had from Crossrail was fixed, so we had to know that we could do what we were proposing to do for the money we had. Well, the idea of the pontoon was really to address the issue of the problem with redoing the steel work and re-riveting the hull. There were all sorts of ways of re-riveting prefabricated plates to actually re-riveting, but there were going to be ongoing problems with that. So the pontoon was, in a sense, the least interventionist approach, and it came about really with a friend who we were discussing the issues that we were facing, who said, why don't you put her on her own box, her own barge? And it was one of those things that was almost a throwaway comment, you know, relaxing one evening, and out of that came this fantastic conservation solution, which is now being heralded as a case study for future conservation projects.
Well, the SS Robin has been moved from her position on the Lowestoft slipway onto the completed pontoon by means of 2 cranes. She's now been shored up in a vertical position on a temporary basis, and she has to have more permanent lateral shoring fitted to the pontoon to give her transverse stability now. For us it's very uncomplicated, but for the crane contractors obviously it's a substantial operation, and I think we've all been very impressed with the way in which they've organised themselves today, but the actual operation is just a matter of lifting from A to B. The most difficult part for us is the actual final position on the pontoon, getting that right, because that's critical with regard to both the loading of the pontoon and maintaining the strength and lack of distortion on Robin. The Robin, we'd estimated from previous data that was available, we'd estimated that the maximum weight would be 300 tonnes, although we did think with the amount of removals that have been made that it would come out less than that. In actual fact today, with the readings we now have from the cranes, the weight that the cranes were seeing was 305 tonnes. We had a longitudinal measurement in millimetres in actual fact from the after support, and the Robin came down within 5 millimetres of that mark, so 5 millimetres in 43 metres is not too bad.
SS Robin receives a celebrity welcome as she returns to the Thames after 3 years of conservation work. A media launch goes to meet her as she is towed into the Royal Albert Dock, less than a mile from where she was built 120 years earlier.
She was looking good then. She looks great now, and she's got so much more to offer. I'm just glad to be here this morning to pay tribute to Nishani and David Campner, to Robin and all the trustees for having the courage, having the vision and having the determination to make sure that she got to this point.
The chances of this ship going to Greenwich are nil. We've closed the bridge, it's not opening up again for it to leave, right? So can we agree that? I don't see how it leaves, because the last time it was here, the British Empire was gone. This was the beating heart of the British Empire. There were ships, there were boats, there were dockers, there was all sorts of things. We have a statue to them down by Excel. Now things are taking off again.
Well, I think the main significance is that as she's such an important London ship, she's now finally back in London after a 3-year refit, which is really significant. We can finally show her in the state that she is in now, which is so much better than she was when she left London in 2008. And it's thanks to all the hard work over those years that she's been saved, whereas she was threatened with scrap. This stage has been a £1.9 million restoration funded by a loan from Crossrail. Well, she's now saved, she's safe, she's hugely more structurally intact than she was, and she's now sitting on this amazing pontoon, which means that we have 10 times the space that we had before to use for school groups and training courses and learning centres and a museum eventually of the story of London and the docks. Well, she's moved now to the site behind me in Millennium Mills in the Royal Victoria Dock as a temporary berth where she'll be fitted out to become the centre that we're planning. She won't be open to the public during that time because she'll be a construction site, and then we'll be negotiating her final berth. She has to be, I think, in London, and I think she has to be where Londoners want her most. So to some extent that's up for grabs.
I really love seeing her move, so I think my answer without kind of sidestepping is is to actually say that I'd like her to be able to see her move, continually move. You know, if we could get the trust into a position where she has a home berth, but she can also do festivals or tour and go around, I think that would be a fantastic result.
If we had not been successful in the negotiation, then every piece of logic points to that being the end of the Robin. I cannot see where the necessary financial resource to allow Robin to continue afloat could have come from. But the one thing about this ship is she surprises you at every turn. So although I cannot imagine what the alternative would have been, this ship may well have found one for herself.